Hello and welcome back to On the Workbench. Today we're taking a look at the bankruptcy filing from Sears Holding Corporation. As you may know, that October 15th, 2018 marked the day that Sears filed for bankruptcy. Now in this case here, there were two bankruptcy filings in the Southern District of New York, one for Sears Holding Corporation, basically the parent company, and there was another filing that was specific for Sears and Kmart under the Sears Roebuck one. They're essentially almost identical. I'm going to focus on the Sears Holding one because if you've owned stock in Sears, in other words, SHLD is a ticker symbol on the NASDAQ, you would be more familiar with it being under the Sears Holding Corporation. And I think this actually has a pretty good picture of the totality of the situation. And so, one of the things that's driven me nuts today as I've been reading about this has been the lack of what in my opinion is the transparency of actually showing what was actually filed with the courts rather than just summarizing it and not going through in detail with what actually was stated by the company. So now I actually have taken a couple liberties here to redact what I thought was some unnecessary personal identifiable information. Now this is a publicly available document. You can obtain it through the federal court system. You don't have to be a lawyer to obtain this. Anyone can obtain it if you know where to look and how to do it. It's not very difficult. And so that's why I get frustrated with the mainstream media for not actually putting this out there. So I'm going to take it upon myself to be able to share this with you. So then hopefully in the comments below we can have a thoughtful discussion about what you see in these legal filings. That being said, I did redact some information. I think I said that already. Number two, I'm not an attorney. Please do not take anything I say as bona fide legal advice. Contact a local attorney if you need that. And finally, this is not information to be used for stock trading or otherwise. I have no insider information, just what's here, and is a public source. Don't pretend to use this as trading advice. If you want advice for trading, do your own research and talk to a financial professional. So here, this is just going to be a commentator from the sideline looking at what we've got here in this bankruptcy filing here. So nothing too out of the ordinary here. It's just a voluntary petition. This is a form for non-individuals, basically companies or partnerships or LLCs or LLPs. Section 1 is the name, Sears Holding. Section 2, a list of other names. There's a whole host of those we'll see in Schedule 1. Number 3, tax information number. I've redacted that because that's not important. Number 4, the debtor's address. You might see that as Hoffman Estates, but you're thinking, what about the Sears Tower? No, they actually vacated that a while back, and that is now known as the Willis Towers. Don't ask anybody who lives in Chicago to call it the Willis Towers. Sorry to the folks that bought it, but everyone still calls it the Sears Tower, but Sears is nowhere to be found in the building. And so they're out in the county in Hoffman Estates. Their website, SearsHoldings.com, and that's the parent company that's responsible for Sears and Kmart principally. And when I say Sears for the rest of this video, just basically think of it as the entirety of Sears, which is both Sears and Kmart. Box 6, it's a corporation. Number 7, it doesn't fall into any of these specific categories here that are outlined on the screen. 7C, we got some census code information. This is exactly what kind of business that this is involved in. That's just more just for some bureaucratic accounting purposes, for census purposes. Number 8, this indicates that they want to file for bankruptcy under Chapter 11, indicating that they intend to restructure their debts. And they check the box of being aware that they have some periodic report filing obligations, and they're aware of that. So moving on, box 9, no bankruptcies in the last 8 years. That's hopefully good news for them. Number 10, any other bankruptcies that are pending or being filed by a business partner, affiliate, or debtor? The answer is yes, and there's a whole host of those that are going to be combined into one master case, if you will. Moving on, box 11. Why is this case being filed in this district? Bankruptcy case concerning debtors, affiliate, general partner, or partnerships is pending in this district. So southeastern New York is basically New York City, lower Manhattan. Not surprising given all the major bank and financial presence in lower Manhattan. And Sears being a major national retailer, obviously has some connections with major national banks that have kept them afloat, as well as hedge funds and other financial institutions that provide the capital to be able to operate a business such as Sears. Box number 12, does the debtor have possession of any real property or personal property that needs immediate attention? Now, they checked the box no, which is correct. I know what you're thinking. Last time he was in Kmart, it looked like Richard Nixon might still be in the White House, but nope. He's not in the White House. It is 2018, but just because it looks way out of date, dilapidated, and not updated and well kept does not mean it qualifies for box 12 here. There's not immediate health hazard just because it looks like it's not been kept up to date. That's probably why you haven't shopped there, and you know why they're not, and why they're actually filing for bankruptcy. I think a lot of folks would agree about that. Number 13, the debtor intends to have some funds available to be able to help repay their creditors. There's more information about that later we'll get to. There's more than 100,000 creditors that are owed money. Section 15, between 1 and 10 billion in estimated assets that they have. Box 16, and that they owe between 10 and $50 billion on a consolidated basis. Moving on, box 17, basically under penalty of perjury that all this information is true, accurate, and correct. False filings can result into fines and penalties, imprisonment, yada, 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 signed by the chief restructuring officer and an attorney. I've redacted some of their personal information there because that's not important. All right, moving on. Schedule 1. This is a list of all the other companies that Sears Holding has operated, done business under, transacted business under in the last 8 years. So a lot of these are Sears or Kmart related names, and some of these are other ones I've never even heard of before. A couple ones here stand out. A&E Factory Service. That's actually what the brand that Sears applies to the trucks now when they go out and service your washing machine or your kitchen stove. You've got a number of other ones here that relate to Kmart, Kmart Apparel. You've got Sears Grand, Sears Auto Center. Some of these other ones are just interesting because they must have organized some very specific locations as its own specific legal entity, all within the Sears Holding Company. Must have Kenmore Direct. That's interesting. National Tire and Battery. Little Caesars Pizza. If you've been in any Kmart's, you're familiar that many of them actually have Little Caesars inside of them. And so this is a pretty comprehensive list here. You got Sears Essential, Sears Grand. If you're a Sears historian, you know there's a little bit of some back and forth on what to call some of their concept stores, but that's in here. Or we got Sears, you got Kmart Pharmacy, and then going down here, farther down the list alphabetically, we've got Shop Your Way, shopyourway.com. We got Super K, Super Kmart, as the list goes on and on. Feel free to pause the screen to take a look at this in its entirety so you can see the names if you see fit to do that. Moving on. Schedule 2. This is a list of basically the same companies and those names, and that the bankruptcy here filing is basically going to be a joint petition administered together as a single case pursuant to Rule 1015B of the Federal Rules of Bankruptcy Procedure. There's no specific case number assigned yet or a judge. This is all basically going to be one consolidated filing for all of those as one entity together under Sears Holding Company. And so that list goes on and comes pretty close to reiterating most of that same list that was there before. I'm not sure it's completely the same. It's interesting to see like My Gopher appears here. Some of the most interesting failed experiments from a few years ago in the upper Midwest. If you've had any experience with My Gopher, I'm curious about that. I've just only seen bits and pieces, and that seems to be something that failed, and they kind of tucked it away pretty quickly when it didn't quite work out. BlueLight.com. I'm pretty sure that has something to do with Kmart and the Blue Light specials. You see Sears Brand Management, which has lately been involved with some of the newer Craftsman products after their sale of the Craftsman brand to Stanley Black & Decker. Moving on. So we keep going here. This is the meat and potatoes of the filing, declaring the total assets as being $6.937 billion, and that they owe $11.339 billion for a difference of about $5.6 billion that they are short right now in money, and that at least 500 people, recall there's over 100,000 people that they were owed money to earlier, so debts that include at least 500 people, so 175 million owned in a secured debt, 411 and 186 respectively in unsecured debt. You also have 20 million shares of preferred stock, and 108,750,000 shares of common stock. You might know it on the NASDAQ as SHLD. Now in the next section, we've got a brief description of the debtor's business for what Sears Holding does. And before I read this, I want to preface this. This is going to sound like a marketing spiel. And this is basically their extended elevator pitch for what they do as a company. So sit back and let me read this to you. Sears Holding Corporation Holdings is an integrated retailer with significant physical and intangible assets as well as virtual capabilities enabled through technology. At August 4, 2018, Holdings operated a national network of stores with 866 full-line and specialty retail stores in the United States operated through Kmart and Sears. Further, Holdings operates a number of websites under the Sears.com and Kmart.com banners, which offer millions of products and provide the capability for our members and customers to engage in cross-channel transactions such as free store pickup, buy in-store ship to home, and buy online return in-store. Holdings is also the home of Shop Your Way, a free membership program that connects its members to personalized products, programs, and partners that help them save time and money every day. Through an extensive network of national and local partners, members can shop thousands of their favorite brands, dine out across an array of exclusive partners like Uber and Fubo TV, earn cash back and points to redeem in savings on future purchases at Sears, Kmart, Land's End, and at ShopYourWay.com. The Sears MasterCard with Shop Your Way features an industry-leading 5321 rewards offer where members can earn reward points on all purchases everywhere they shop. Holdings is a leading home appliance retailer as well as a leader in tools, lawn and garden, fitness, automotive repair and maintenance, and is a significant player in the rapidly emerging connected solutions market. Holdings offers key proprietary brands including Kenmore and DieHard, as well as Craftsman branded product offerings. Holdings Kenmore and DieHard brands are also now available on Amazon.com. Holdings also maintains a broad apparel and home offering, including such well-known labels as Jacqueline Smith, Joe Boxer, Route 66, Canon, Adam Levine, and Levi's, and also offers Land's End merchandise in some of our full-line stores. Holdings is the nation's #1 provider of appliance and product repair services, with over 5 million service calls made annually. Full stop. All right, that last bit there about service calls made annually, that's by their A&E factory service division, just to make sure we get that clarified here. All right, the next piece here is if there's any entity that owns or has the power to vote with more than 5%. And there's only one of those that was listed in the filing, and that's ESL Investments. That's, I believe that to be the hedge fund, ESL, meaning Eddie S. Lampert, the initials of what was the CEO up through today, and his meddling in the company. And so he also controls 5% through that investment arm. And so even though he's no longer CEO of Sears as part of the bankruptcy filing, that was announced separately and independently of the bankruptcy that he was stepping down, the letter to employees. But he still has 5% voting power through the amount of debt that he owns related to the company. All right, moving on. All right, the next section here relates to the restructuring plan under Chapter 11 of the Bankruptcy Code. And so the point here is that this is going to outline the arrangements wherewith Sears can continue to operate as a brick-and-mortar store, as an online company, and not have to lock the doors immediately and liquidate all their assets. And so there's terms like DIP, refers to debtor in possession, refers that Sears still remains in possession of their real estate and their assets, and that they're just trying to restructure their balance sheet so that they can get, right down here, the company seeking relief under provisions, so that it can hopefully restructure and become a stronger company on the other end. Some companies have emerged better from this. Others, they don't quite make it all the way through. But the intent of a Chapter 11 bankruptcy gives Sears more control over the current assets and what happens to them. And so as part of this process, they've laid out the legal framework here for who are these specific people and what are their obligations and what they can do. And so that gets us about the authorized persons. As we move on the next page, there's more information here about debtor in possession financing. Now, I think this is actually interesting here. Resolved that in connection with the Chapter 11 case, it is desirable and in the best interest of the company, its creditors, and other parties in interest to enter into and obtain loans and consummate the transactions under the certain senior secured superiority priming debtor in possession asset-based credit facility in an arrangement principal amount of $1.875 billion. In other words, this is the debtor in possession loan that they're going to be securing to help them reorganize and restructure, and then they can, with this loan, they can pay down their debts and theoretically get on a better payment plan to allow them to be able to return to profitability and restructure, or at least that would be the outlying goal. This represents an increase of $300 million from the existing facility. The terms set forth on the term sheet attached here to as Exhibit A. And it goes on. Feel free to read more there on screen. One of the lenders here, just to point out here, is Bank of America. That's one that some folks will recognize as a big player here. Furthermore, more details here. I'm just going to pause here for a moment. If you want to read more about this, just hit the pause button on your browser as you're watching this video and feel free to read. And so this is basically just going through that all the authorized agents or the persons here have the full authority, the full authorization. They're empowered to direct on behalf of the company to take further action, including without limitation to pay fees, expenses in accordance with the terms of the debtor in possession financing documents. And so basically these people are charged with executing the plan and have the full legal authority to act in what's hopefully the best interest of the company as part of seeking relief under the Bankruptcy Code. And so then there's a listing now of the advisors. I've redacted their names because I'm not sure they're that important here for this process here. The most important thing is the CEO, Eddie Lampert, did end up stepping down today as CEO. I believe he's still going to stay on as chairman of the board, but he's not going to be on as CEO. I've got my own suspicions about why he did that, but that's a different topic for a different video. Moving on. Furthermore, there's several other corporate committees that are going to be dissolved. And this is just basically part of the restructuring that gives them hopefully a little more flexibility to be able to restructure what they're doing as they move forward. And therefore, this is ratified and resolved that any and all past actions heretofore taken by any authorized person, any director, any other member of the company in the name or on behalf of the company, in the furtherance of any or all the preceding resolutions be, and the same hereby are ratified, confirmed, and approved in all respects. So those directors that are involved here have quite a bit of authority for what they can do independently and as a group for how they can manage Sears on the path forward. General authorization, this is basically more of the same thing about having the authorized folks being able to basically manage and operate the company through the Chapter 11 process. Now, we get on to the last couple pages here, and this is where I think it's also interesting here. We get a chance to look behind the scenes and the curtains pulled back onto whom Sears owes the most money. And so this is in descending order of value. Number one is an interesting one, the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. This is actually a quasi-government agency that's set up to be able to serve pensioners or retirees from companies that have went bankrupt. And this is the pension aspect of the Sears balance sheet is something that former CEO Eddie Lampert has talked about several times as being a real horse collar around their neck for being able to be an agile company, able to compete in the 21st century. And so this is listed here as an unknown amount of value that's claimed based on pension benefits. Obviously, one piece of that depends on how old every person that's vested actually lives, and therefore how much money they can collect. if you look at when Sears was set up to what over 100 some years ago to today, and what the life expectancy is, you can see how much that has changed, and probably has affected the calculus to some extent on the pension benefits. Now, numbers 2 through 6 are all basically financial institutions that have unsecured notes. That these are all banks or credit union, banks or hedge funds, or other funding mechanisms or stock mechanisms, or entities that manage stock or stock operations to whom Sears owes money for their financial operations. So I think 2 through 6 is kind of boring. It's just the nitty-gritty of operating. It's interesting here, you see things like 8%. I don't see interest rates and other ones of these to see exactly where they're at. And it's interesting considering what interest rates are at today, that 8% is significantly higher than what I would expect them to have today. But just my opinion. If you got some different thoughts, put it below. Now, let's move on to the next list. So starting with 7 and following, we've got what are known as trade payable vendors that have a nature of a claim, basically in the form of goods that was delivered to Sears, which also includes Kmart, for which they were not paid. This is common practice in the retail industry, that vendors will send their goods to companies like Sears. They distribute them, put them in stores, sell them. Then as they sell them down, they pay the vendors back as they go. And so everyone wins. There's no interest loss between Sears and the other vendors. And everyone hopefully wins in the end, except for when the vendor doesn't actually have the money to pay back, because the money from selling those products got diverted into paying things like interest, fees, and other bits and pieces of the business, paying pensions, paying salary, so on and so forth. And so number 7, 8, and 9 are appliance companies. We got Whirlpool, Frigidaire, and Wina Daewoo Electronics. If I scroll down a little bit further, we get number 13, we get the Samsung. Given that Sears is one of the nation's leading retailers of appliances, that's no surprise. Especially when you consider their Kenmore brand. If you can consider it a brand, I know they do consider it a brand, but Kenmore doesn't actually make appliances. They make sure that, I hope a lot of people understand that there is no such thing as a Kenmore factory, and that Sears over the years has basically contracted out with different merchants to be able to make products and slap the Kenmore brand name on it, where it's up to Sears spec. It's basically one of the other companies' products. They tweak it a little bit to make it unique for Sears. That's sold exclusively at Sears with whatever unique twist, whether it's a color or a feature that makes it a Sears exclusive product, and therefore gets a Kenmore brand name slapped on it. And so we've also heard a while back about Whirlpool wanting to stop selling everything to Sears as a result of their non-payment. And now we see that's $23.4 million. Moving down the line, number 10, Cardinal Health. From what I can tell, I think this is a pharmaceutical-related company. Owed $13.8 million, which my best guess this relates to Kmart pharmacy operations. I think that's just an interesting little piece of the puzzle here. Number 11, Icon Health and Fitness. You might better know them as the folks behind Nordic Track. In the description about themselves, they talked about being a leading provider of fitness equipment. Well, that certainly shows that they owe a lot of money for fitness equipment, the tune of about $12.1 million. Then we got number 12, HK Great Star. They're basically a Hong Kong-based OEM of consumer electronics like radio, CD players, DVDs, I think television, so on and so forth. It's interesting to me that this is on this list, and that most of the Sears I've been at in the last couple of years have actually dumped their electronics department. Although Kmart still has electronics department, so maybe that's where this is coming in at. Number 13, Samsung. Obviously appliances, refrigerators, stoves, microwaves, freezers. And then now we get to number 14. We get to Apex Tools. And number 15, Black & Decker. Both folks are behind the Craftsman brand, which is interesting because Craftsman was sold to Stanley Black & Decker back in 2017. There is some licensing deals where Sears or Sears Brand Management or whatever the right entity is can develop Craftsman products independently of Stanley Black & Decker and pay Stanley Black & Decker royalties for that for a few years going forward. So I've got a reason to believe they want to collect on as much of that as they can. Apex, if I believe they had a little bit of a tiff, and that's why Craftsman changed the sourcing of their screwdrivers and pliers to a different vendor. One tool vendor that I'm not seeing on here is Tektronix, or TTI, the folks behind Ryobi Tools, which is basically the same as Craftsman C3 Tools. There was a semi-public dispute about that, and their feud about them not wanting to supply them with Craftsman C3 Tools, but they don't actually make this list at all. So going down to number 16, we've got Eastern Prime Textile Limited. From what I can tell, I believe this is a sleepwear company. So this is like Joe Boxer, maybe Jacqueline Smith, I'm not really sure, but a sleepwear company. This is kind of surprising to me at $5.7 million. But obviously textiles, and, come see the softer side of Sears, and, well, Eastern Prime Textiles was behind the softer side of Sears, and Sears owes them some hard currency in response for that softer side they provided. And then number 17, Winners Industry Company Limited. This is something I've never heard of before. And from what I can tell, I think they're an automotive parts and I guess knick-knack supplier. They're responsible for producing products like floor mats, scented air fresheners, cup holders, and just general automotive accessories. But I get the sense that they also make some automotive parts as well. And with the Sears Auto Centers being a piece of a number of Sears stores, although the number of those have closed recently, owing them $5.4 million from that piece of the business. And then we got three more here at the bottom of the list here. Number 18. This looks like it's a little more, and all these are a little more inside baseball, if you will. Number 18 is an IT support company, Tata Consultancy, which appears to have a major presence in India and New Jersey, or the Edison, New Jersey office must just be their location for North American operations. You got a marketing company at number 19, which I think is peculiar, and maybe the fact that they're owed so much money is why marketing has been so poor. Because if you're not getting paid, maybe you're not going to market and work so hard on behalf of your client. I've not been impressed that much with Sears marketing lately. Maybe there's more behind the scenes I haven't seen that can explain that, but still interesting. And then finally, number 20 is an automotive retail rentals Inc., which from what I can tell is vehicle fleet management, which would likely go into providing fleet cars for regional district managers, staff, warehouse operations, and just what it takes behind the scenes to be able to move people to the different places that Sears does business. And they're owed $4.8 million as well. So that's the end of the bankruptcy filing here. The next page here is just a final statement that says everything is correct. It is a penalty of perjury that everything is true and correct, and it is confirming again Chapter 11 of the Bankruptcy Code, signed by the Chief Restructuring Officer. And then that takes us to the end of this primary source document about Sears bankruptcy. So I hope you found this video useful and interesting. If you get any other comments or thoughts about it, please put in the comments below. Please give this a like or a thumbs up. I'm interested in your thoughts and opinions on this, as I'm sure other people are. And I'm excited to bring this to you, and give me a thumbs up if you will, and have a great day.